All right, so we are live here, and guys, this is I'm David Fox, another podcast, Dreamers of the Day, and I'm stoked, man. We're here with Casey Cornelius, who is Casey's. We got like a cool dynamic. He is a teammate. You were on Team Alvarez together. He is a jiu-jitsu practitioner, a long time, but as you're gonna see, he's got his own business, ForCollegeForLife, which I'm so stoked to get right into. So Casey, let's dive right into it. Tell me about ForCollegeForLife.
First of all, Dave, thanks for having me. I know that we've been trying to make this happen now for a few weeks, and I appreciate your patience, and thanks to everybody who's tuning in. I really appreciate it. So ForCollegeForLife is a speaking agency. We work with college, universities, organizations all across the country. Have been since 2014, and we provide, like I always tell people, if you've ever been on a college campus and you see that poster that says this person is here tonight at 7 o'clock in the lecture theater, that's who we are. Like that's what we do. So we provide that service. Let's see, last year we were in 44 states and 3 countries. So we try to do good work, be good people in the process too.
Awesome. And so you were, and you had mentioned, we were talking earlier, before the show, that you yourself speak. You don't just book them, but you're a speaker as well.
Yeah. So they still let me speak, which is nice. I try to do my part, but people think it's jokingly when I say this, but I mean it in the bottom of my heart. My aspiration is to be the worst speaker on our roster. So I always try to recruit people who I think are better than me, because I want to get to the point where I'm like the last choice. And that's not people assume a lot of things about that. Like, oh, you don't want to travel as much. You don't want to do it. And that's really not it. I just think that we're going to be incredible the day that happens, because I have a little ego. You can't do what I do and not have a little ego. I have a little ego about what I do, but if I'm the worst, then we're good. Like we're fine.
Right on. Yeah. So how do you I guess without going into too much detail, how do you choose the right speakers? Like what does that look like? Because it seems like it's a growing industry. Would that be accurate? So it seems like it's kind of growing. So how do you find the right people?
Well, there's both an art and a science to that, right? So over the years, what I've realized is that there are 2 basic factors that are going to dictate someone's success with us as a company and success in the field. And they're really simplistic at their core, but I think that it helps me make decisions about who's the right fit. So we talk about being good people doing important work. And the times that we have failed as an organization are when we sacrifice one of those. So if you're doing really important work, if you've got topic passion, you're good at what you do, but you're not necessarily a good person, that it doesn't work for us. The flip side of that is maybe you're an awesome person. Maybe you're a great soul, but your work is not all that impactful or necessary. That's typically not a good recipe as well. So we have people who apply to be a part of our team. We have people who are referred to be a part of our team. We have to explain one of the elements of this as well. We have some people who are full-time speakers. This is what they do. This is how they pay their bills. We have some folks who this is a portion of their professional identity. The example that is always easiest to give is, are you a sports fan at all?
No,
Okay.
No,
Okay.
Not really. Like unless you say someone like huge, I'm not gonna know them.
Okay, so one of our speakers is an anchor on ESPN SportsCenter. You can turn on the TV, multiple times a week and see him on TV.
Oh, sweet.
So while speaking is not obviously 100% of his professional identity, it's some of his professional identity.
Understood.
So we have people across the spectrum in terms of are they 100%? Is this 10%? Everywhere in between. But what we try to do is really identify the people who are really good at what they do. They're good people. They're doing important work, and that typically is the magic.
That's that's a huge
I'm going to drink some coffee today. Is that
No, of course, no, man. No,
my Detroit cup?
Yeah, I think that's a good like criteria because like something that stuck out to me. Again, we're talking about Coach Carl, and Coach Alvarez, and those. They verbalized it and just it cemented it in my mind. I was like, they were talking about obviously I'm going to talk about jiu-jitsu a little bit. They're like, to be a high rank, like in our school, to like, it's no longer enough to just be, a sweet grappler. That's not enough. Like if you want brown and black belt, like now we're talking about you need to be, you're going to be an elite grappler. You keep training long enough, but now you need to be an elite human. And by that, they mean like, they're good. They're going to dive into your life. And that's something that, dude, that just stuck with me. I fully support. Cause I remember that like, whatever, I just remember years ago at my old gym, like some blew up and they like, everyone was so upset and this and that. And I was like, yeah, just cause you're a black belt doesn't mean you're a great human. Like you can be a killer grappler and not a great human, So,
and I think we share this probably, right? So one of the reasons that I'm drawn to Professor Alvarez, is that he is a black belt human.
For sure. Without question.
And I've never gotten a vibe from him ever in what is it now? Almost a decade that it's put on, that there's a behind the scenes Dan Alvarez. That is who he is. And I think that his investment, not only in the physical side of his students in his academy, but also the mental, the emotional. Like tune into the coffee with Coach every day. Yeah. He's not doing that for a business. Like that's because he cares about the people.
Yeah, no, that's making him no money. Yeah.
Yep.
And bro, you're so like I'd like to think I can see if somebody's faking it, so like get some type of intuition, especially the more time you spend around them. But something I tell this is something that we try to do, like as a company with Metro Jiu-Jitsu, with myself as well, is put out so much content that I couldn't be two-faced if I tried, at least not without getting on blast right away, like to where like it's just so consistent. And then like if I give you a huge one, an easy one. I'm a family man, right? I'm huge on family. I love being married. I love my kids. If I were to go out to a gentleman's club, which I don't, I would get put on blast so quick, so right away, so that's that. I like having plenty of accountability. And Coach, Professor Alvarez, Coach Carl, all those guys, they just every aspect. If you were to audit any area of their life, any time of the day, they'd be the exact same.
And let's flip it for just a second. I don't know about you. When I interact with people in business or just in day-to-day interactions, I wish it were more socially acceptable to grapple with people, because I think we call it a BS filter, right? Like when you slap hands with someone and for 5 minutes or 10, whatever it is, you're simulating murder.
Yep.
You find out pretty quickly what that person's about. It does not take, and this as a black belt, like it does not take very long for me with a stranger to figure out who they are and what they're about once we lock up.
That's a good point. And I think that's why it's, I think that's why it is, the bond that's created from jiu-jitsu is so tight because exactly where everybody stands. And if somebody's got, if they're a hothead, you're going to find that out. If they're a jerk, you're going to find that out. And if they're just a nice guy,
if they don't respect you as a partner, it does not take long to figure that out either. The longer I've been doing this, I'm sure you're the same way. I struggle to tolerate that. I can understand it better with new people. Like I can understand with a new person, maybe they haven't figured out the culture of the gym, that kind of stuff. But like if someone's been around long enough that they should know better and they don't seem to respect who but my body, this is a very meta conversation for anyone who's not jiu-jitsu related. I apologize. But like when they take physical advantage of things in training, I know something about them as a human being as well.
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. No. I agree 100%. Yeah. And yeah, it'd be nice if you could be like, yeah, I'm here. You're here for your 4 p.m. Great. I'll go get changed. I'll get my gi, and then we'll be right
first. Yeah.
We'll right in the conference room.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's awesome, man. So let me pull up the next is we've got we talked about your business. So what's your formal education? What's how'd you get into that? What's your a little bit of background and getting into that?
So I'm a graduate of the University of Toledo, graduated from the University of Toledo 2 times, also the University of Illinois. So I always share this as part of my story. I'm a first generation college student. Neither of my parents went to school. I have one uncle who went to college and graduated, but otherwise I don't have a family structure around that. I grew up in an area initially up until junior high where college going certainly was not the norm by any stretch of the imagination. Once I moved, I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio originally. We moved to a different side of town. College going was a little bit more the expectation, but I grew up in an absolutely working class family. So I was not a good high school student. I was rejected by every single college I applied to, every single one, including the University of Toledo initially. And that was sort of a heartbreaker because they were the last one on the list. And at the bottom of it, it said, if you'd like to discuss this decision, call this number. And I did, and I was given a 1 semester probation, and I sort of hit my stride after that. So I did bachelor's and master's at the University of Toledo, second master's at University of Illinois, and then at the University of Toledo in grad school is when I started my first college teaching experience, and that was sort of the initial phase of my career was as a college faculty member.
Gotcha. Okay. So what did that conversation look like? You called up UT and you're like, "Hey, I got this letter. I need to talk to the manager." Like what did that look like?
I still have the letter framed in my office, believe it or not. Just because I remember the feeling. I remember the heartbreaking feeling of like, man, nobody wants me. And I was rejected by colleges, and I'm not going to name them by name. I was rejected by colleges I didn't know you could be rejected by. Like, I thought it was one of those, like, they check your pulse. Oh, you're in, right? I had a high school guidance counselor who had the college isn't for everyone talk with me. Like I was, but the University of Toledo, we had a conversation about goals, about what I wanted to do. But then they also, it was tough love in a way because they were like, look, we're going to give you 1 semester. And if you mess up, you're going to have to hit the road. I got to the University of Toledo. My first roommate was his high school's valedictorian. And I was like, okay, like, I guess it's time to step up game a little bit. Yeah. And I sort of fell in, I think, to the right environment, the right time in my life. All the things kind of came together, and I was off and running. I did have the conversation at the end of my first semester. They were like, great, you're good to go. And just kind of went on from there. But I didn't know things like when I was in college, I didn't know that I could get paid to go to grad school. So in my senior year of college, when I was trying to figure out what was next, I had a professor who's like, well, you want to do your master's and we'll pay you to do it. And I was like, wait, not only do I not have to pay, but you're going to pay me to do this? Yeah, sure. Sign me up. And then I started working for a professor in grad school. I always tell this story because it's part of my evolution. He loved teaching. I met him. I knew that he loved teaching. So I wasn't dumb. When he said to me, what do you want to do? Of course I said, I want to teach. So he was like, okay, well, in a couple of weeks, you're going to teach 8 a.m. class Wednesday. You're going to teach 8 a.m. Wednesday, this topic. Okay, cool. So I'm preparing. It turns out that the first class I ever taught was September 12th, 2001 at 8 a.m. So the morning after 9/11,
wow,
at 8 a.m., the University of Toledo was the first class I ever taught.
What did you teach on?
We were talking about culture. We were talking about culture and norms and values, and imagine what people wanted to talk about. So for the younger viewers, that's just a date. But for anyone who is old enough to remember the uncertainty associated with that day, waking up the next day and at 8 a.m. having to go into a room of 250 students and talk about norms and values and understanding other cultures, that was fun. And I remember the professor at the time saying, well, if you got through this one, they'll all be pretty easy.
Yeah.
And he was right. So that's part of the story.
That is, that's awesome, bro. Like that's, really that whole story, the fact that, and I like that, I do little things like that as well. The fact that you've still got that rejection letter saved, like I'm huge, like I'm really, really huge on, another thing that's important to me and Professor Alvarez, bro, I tell everybody, I mean, he is by all definitions, like he is successful. Okay. Yep. Like by almost everyone's definition.
Yep.
But if he were to, I tell everyone, if he was in this room with us right now, you wouldn't know how many time of a world champion he is. You wouldn't know, you wouldn't know the size of his school and say, you wouldn't know his student base. Like you wouldn't know. He would just be like, yeah, all right, cool. He'd be talking with us and he's very, very humble.
Yep.
And I like that about him. And so like that, the fact that you still got that saved to sort of remember that feeling, I think sweet. I think it's really sweet. Yep. So, what is perfect flow? What's your stance on college? Do you believe it's necessary to succeed?
So I get this question a lot. I think that for people who want a career that is not something that they can just intuitively do, I think it's right probably for 90% of people. And I recognize the arguments against college as well. Apprenticeships, taking a job, learning from other people in that field. But I mean, college has such a, there's so many options, such a spectrum of options from, 4-year residential college to online to local community college. I think that for anyone who wants to get into a field where they need a level of technical knowledge or expertise that they can't just get themselves, that they have to be around other people, they have to go through a process, they have to have access to people who've spent a career learning something, I think it's probably invaluable. I mean, we talk about jiu-jitsu here. I have people ask me this question every once in a while. Do I really need to join a gym to be good at jiu-jitsu? Well, no. I mean, technically speaking, no. There's a ton of information on YouTube, certainly a ton more than when you and I got started. Yeah. Could you study jiu-jitsu all day? Could you get some friends and roll in the backyard, roll in your basement, your garage? Yeah. Yes, you could. And you could get good. Maybe you have natural ability, natural talent. You could get good. But are you going to get as good as going to Metro Jiu-Jitsu and learning from you? No. I mean, no.
So what would be some examples of that? Like, so obviously my wife is a nurse and I always joke she's the smart one in our relationship, right? Because, she's way smarter than I am.
It's a healthy mindset too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Things like medical, legal, like there's certain, because I've seen both sides and I'm, I want to keep the conversation, the ball in your court. My keep my views sort of to myself, but I do see both sides of the argument as well. Because there's plenty of students who have gone and got a some type of degree in something that it's practically worthless.
Sure.
Because it was just maybe poor guidance, maybe, unclear focus, unclear vision. So What would be like some examples or categories or industries that you're like, yo, if you want to get into this, you're going to need this degree?
this is a conversation that could go on for hours and probably best be had sort of around a table, right? But what I always say is having a credential can only hurt if you do not, if you limit the ability for it to translate to other things. So for example, if you have an English degree, maybe you'll never be a writer, maybe you'll never be a journalist, maybe a copy editor, any of those things. But does the ability to communicate effectively, to write well, to be concise, to explain an idea that might be complicated, can that translate to other fields? Absolutely. Every business in this world who has put out any degree of marketing hires someone to ensure that what they're putting out there is correct, is succinct, is grammatically correct, all those other kind of things. So you translate the ability. My master's degree is in sociology, which is the study of groups of people and why they do what they do. Every marketing company in this country has someone like me on their staff to help them understand why people are doing what they're doing and how they can help guide them to do something different. So if I go, oh, no, I'm only a sociologist, I'm only going to study and research and teach sociology, I would be limited in the transferability of skill and knowledge in a way that I think a lot of people fall into that trap, right? Like they fall into the, no. It's very specific what I'm going to do. And I know we're going to get into entrepreneurship here in just a second. I cannot imagine being a successful entrepreneur without understanding people, why they do what they do, and how to help guide that behavior to a different outcome.
That is probably one of the best.
Oh man, I got a quote. Look at that.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
That's probably, honestly, and I've heard a lot of arguments on it. That's probably one of the best arguments for for college that I've heard. And that makes perfect sense. Like as a business owner, I was like, of course. Yeah. I mean, we got marketing people, we got copywriters, like to make sure.
Graphic design.
Yeah. Graphic design. We've got, and it always, Joe, man, in the age of like digital marketing, social, the fact that like a headline can and font color,
yeah,
and these things that like I'm like, bro, whatever, I don't care, just pick a color, like
right.
like wall with your wife, right? Just pick a color.
Yeah.
No, it matters, and how it converts, and like those things matter, and like so I get that, I totally get that, and
I'll give you one more example. Again, I know we could spend hours on this. I am not great at accounting.
Me neither.
Right. So as a business owner at the beginning, I had to be good enough at accounting.
Sure.
But the scalability, the ability for my business to go like this increased dramatically when I got out of my own way and hired someone to do the accounting.
Yep.
Because the time that it would have taken me to get good enough at it would have limited the potential in other areas, where I could just turn to someone that this is their expertise, pay them for their expertise, and get the heck out of the way and focus on what I do.
Right. Yeah. And that is, guys, anyone listening, anyone who's like, I've heard things like that for 11 years. And I'm just now like realizing the importance of it, because, like I was raised like, I got free lunches in school. So that's how I was raised, right? Yeah. Like I was just like, oh, save your money, do the work yourself. And there's value in that. I never want to forget where I can. And I think part of it was my ego, right? I was like, well, I'm not going to, I can do it myself. I don't want to be like too big for my britches, but that key scalability, like a black belt has no business doing taxes. You have forget the fact that I'm going to like mess it up and my liability is going to be terrible, but like, why I'll focus on my expertise, pay someone else to focus on their expertise.
And how much better of a gym owner, a teacher, just your own personal development as a grappler can you be if you're not spending 3 hours a day figuring out how to do taxes in Utah?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right. And that's key point, right? Because when you're focusing on like what I wanted, like best gym, best jiu-jitsu, best experience, our members and our student base would suffer because they wouldn't be getting all of me or all of coaching.
Have to. Yep.
Yeah. And so yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And I wish I had implemented that. And there's like I get startups and startup costs, and you do what you have to. Yeah, so I get all that. But
and by the way, I don't want anyone to hear that startup experience, like you should immediately hire 10 people to do things.
No, you can't. You
can't. In fact, you want to talk about scalability. You're going to just tie your hands and feet if you're spending all of your money on these things. There's going to be a pain period in the evolution of any startup where you have to figure some stuff out. The first time that someone says, send me an invoice, and you're like, what's an invoice? You're going to have to figure these things out. Yeah. But when you get to a point where it's like, wait, we think we have something here. What are our limiting factors for success? One of them is going to be you as an entrepreneur trying to do everything.
Yes.
It can't work. It cannot work.
It cannot work. And I think, I just remember, like, so we opened December of 18, and man, just that whole stage is a blur. Like, we went from like getting a lease to opening doors for business in like 3 months. And the build out, like, you probably understand this, the build out involved tearing up concrete and installing plumbing. Like, we didn't have showers. And so, like, it was not like, oh, let me just throw some paint up in 3 months. It was massive work, and both a blessing and a curse is I'm handy. Yep. And I had some experience in the trades, but like I did, all the flooring in there, and like just ridiculous. End up saving the tens of thousands by doing the work myself. But and I think there's value to it, right? You've got
sweat equity.
Yeah, you've got sweat equity, but there's a good the book Start With Why, and he was talking with just this huge mastermind of all these killer black belt businessmen, metaphorically. They were black belts, but they miss the days. Like, they were all like super wealthy, like could retire and live for 5 lifetimes, but they missed the days where, like, I just, I missed the days where I was kind of struggling a little bit. So there's some nostalgia there. Like, there's some nostalgia of like having to like, what are we going to do, of figuring that out. But then you get through like this startup, this growing pains, the grinding stage, and then you can almost get into like this busy. Oh, I'm so busy. You're so busy. You're so busy because you're doing things that you should be hiring someone else to do at this point.
Let's translate this to jiu-jitsu a little bit. And I know that many of our folks are jiu-jitsu folks. Yeah. I miss the days, and I'll reflect with some of on our academy. We call it, like, the OG guys. I miss the days where we were training in racquetball courts. Or above a gym, or like where you could just, wherever you could find some mat space. I missed those days before it was like rank and Worlds, American Nationals is coming up. All those things are great. They're fantastic. But I miss the days where it was like, let's just show up and work our butt off and get better.
Yeah.
There's something oddly, bad word to use in jiu-jitsu, but something oddly romantic about that too, because that's the foundation. Those bricks, the metaphorically or literally, those bricks that you lay, boy, they're important, because if not, other people come in and the path is already firm and smooth, and they don't understand that it wasn't always that way.
Yeah, totally. And I agree. We have a we have a wrestling class, and I don't, I'm not the wrestling coach. You don't want me coaching wrestling, but we have a guy who does. And so, like when we line up by rank, I get in line. Like I don't go up by Coach Jim. I get in line. I'm a student, right? Yeah. And everyone's looking. They're like, "Oh, it's weird." I was just laughing. I was like, I miss like, guys, you're going to miss this. I miss being the student all of the time at times. I love coaching, of course, but there's just something. And I told him, I was like, there's value to Coach Jim has botched a single leg several thousand times. He's going to show me, the proper way to do it, and I'm going to learn from his mistakes. And so I think that translates really
well. Let me ask you a question. So I know that you're about 6 months now at black belt. Is that correct?
Well, I got it in December.
Yeah.
Break in March, so reopened. So yeah, like I got it in December, but yeah, about 6 months.
But you probably have experienced a difference too. I full transparency, I'm not a black belt one of these days, but like probably the feeling of walking on the mat as a brown belt, which is still elite and deserves a massive amount of respect, versus a black belt. And now you've got a target on you that's different, right? Like.
Yeah.
Everybody you roll with, everybody you slap hands with is like, this is a black belt. I want to get that win. Like I want to get that victory, right?
Yeah.
It's different. It's different.
Totally. And it's funny you mentioned that because we just had our promotions. We got a really fun moment for our gym. We got like 11 blue belts. So I was really, really those like we had a gym of white belts forever. So I'm really happy to get that. And then we had promoted one purple belt. And two purple. And I was just same deal. I was like, listen, guys, you all have a target on your back this year because the white belts are going to make sure we made the right choice, right? They're going to make sure. So, and then Coach, Professor Alvarez asked me, like, I think the day after I got my black belt, he's like, how's that black belt feeling? And I sent him this GIF of I was like live crew of my team right now, and it was just like a whole bunch of gangbangers like hyping up, chasing me, right. And he just started laughing. That was it, bro. Sure. And that's exactly it. So and I think that's each promotion, especially more so at black, but that's each promotion. They're like, okay, I'll be the judge of whether you deserve that belt,
That's right. That's right.
We're talking about it. Let's just keep talking about it. So what effect or what role has jiu-jitsu played in your career and the business realm?
So this is going to sound like overly idealistic. I understand. I cannot imagine my life without jiu-jitsu. I cannot imagine being successful in business without jiu-jitsu.
Can't.
My business is not a jiu-jitsu business, clearly, but who I was like pre-jiu-jitsu versus post-jiu-jitsu, I would not have been equipped. Let's get real specific about it. I certainly wouldn't have been equipped for what has been true since March 15th. There's no way in this world, because we know that there are certain things that you learn in jiu-jitsu and grappling that translate to life. And one of them is, and one of the lessons that I keep mulling over in my mind is that you can be in a rush to make bad decisions in jiu-jitsu, and there are immediate consequences to those. If I'm rolling with Coach David and I make a mistake, I'm going to pay for it. And I know that. So sometimes the best thing to do is chill, do nothing, wait. And that involves patience and understanding that there's a risk aversion and all these other kind of things. I apply that exact same lesson to what's going on in the world right now. Patience, risk aversion. Don't be in a rush to make a bad choice. Now, some people will see that as being a business mindset or business savvy, but without jiu-jitsu, there's no way I would have come to the same conclusions and things. But translated even further, I'm a better husband because of jiu-jitsu. I'm a better father because of jiu-jitsu. I'm a better neighbor. Trust me, I'm a better neighbor. I mean, anybody who's ever trained, you get what I'm saying. Like pre-jiu-jitsu, when your neighbors are testing you, you're like, man, I wanna choke this fool. Like, but now you're like, okay, it's cool. Let's just roll with it. Let's be patient. Let's help them. Maybe, like pre-jiu-jitsu, post-jiu-jitsu, a completely different person. I was with my parents a couple weeks ago, and they even talked about it. Like you're just a different person overall than you were years ago. And I cannot overstate the value that jiu-jitsu has in that, from being humble, being patient, being respectful of people, understanding things like tradition, rank, doing the little things. I mean, I wrote a whole program about just life lessons from jiu-jitsu. Cutting your toenails. Cutting your toenails seems like a really small thing to ask someone to do, but why is it so important? Well, it's because it protects you, protects me, it protects the school. Getting a grip before you move. Like, it's really important to get a grip, because without that grip, whatever success you're going to have is going to go away pretty quickly, because your opponent's going to react and respond. You can apply all of those same lessons to life and relationships, and even being a good neighbor to people.
Man. Yeah. And it's, just, again, we could go, I have some thoughts, and then I got to curb myself. Right. But
we can turn this around one day. I'll interview you.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But that is so, I mean, it's so cliche. And I like that. That's coming from you, right? Because of course it's going to look like I got some motive, but I'm not alone in this. I mean, like, anybody who trains for any serious amount, can't imagine their life. And I'll be real transparent with you guys. Like, the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks of lockdown, and we weren't training, of course. And dude, I told Amanda, I was like, I just walk around angry.
Yep.
I walk, like, not like on edge, angry, like wishing. And for me, that's very abnormal. It's very, very abnormal. Like, I'm not, like, I've got an extremely long fuse because of jiu-jitsu, but I'm just walking around angry and like lashing out at Amanda, which I don't do very frequently, at the kids, which I don't do very frequently. And so when you went and you could say, like, I take responsibility for those actions. I'm not saying like, oh, it's someone's fault because I can't train jiu-jitsu, but boy, does jiu-jitsu help.
100%.
And that's huge. I really like that you pointed out and I feel like I might have made a video, like our Metro Drive, about this. The reason it's so good for kids is because they realize right away, like, there's consequences. They realize, and you're prepping them like nobody wins all the time.
Nope.
Nobody, not ever. And so nobody wins all the time, and so you're not doing your child any favors to sort of cushion them and like keep them comfortable. And in fact, you're hurting them. And like, there comes a point, I believe, like, if you're trying to remove all consequences from your child, that's almost irresponsible. Because, like, imagine just if they make it to 18 and they haven't had a single consequence for anything they've done in their life.
Yeah.
So that's
well, and this to be true. There also becomes an evolution in how we as jiu-jitsu people see challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna puff you up too much about this, but when I roll with you, for example, we have a very similar game. Our styles are very, very similar, but I recognize that you're better at that game than I am. So what do? I want you to put me in these bad positions. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I'm not trying to win. Don't misunderstand. But I want to see how someone better at the game that I have would treat this situation.
Mm.
And that's a mindset that is tough for someone who's never done what we've done to understand, like to get their mind around. Wait, you want to put yourself in bad positions to see? Yeah, I do. Because how often can you learn from someone who's better at what you do than you do?
Sure.
Like, again, if you don't do jiu-jitsu, that's a very strange thing. Like, I can roll with Professor Alvarez. I can roll with Coach Carl, and their game is different than mine. And I can evolve, and I can learn some things. But I'm also trying to play the chess game against people who have different pieces. When you and I, there's a very, like, I'm rolling with a mirror, but the mirror knows what I'm going to do before I do. So it's really strange, but I want to have that experience.
And I've for the right. Thank you. I appreciate that. But I've experienced that. There's several others, of teammates that, like, same thing. And it's like, I remember distinctly trying to ankle lock one of my coaches, and he's just, just like completely unfazed. I'm like trying to ankle lock, and then he like waited about 5 seconds, just grabbed my ankle and just finished it in a millisecond. And I was like, boy, like.
And for those who are watching this who do not know what that means, an ankle lock is like, one, it's scary if you're not familiar with it, but two, it's akin to a knockout punch. Like it's over. There's very little like room for negotiation once it's on, right? So what Coach Dave is saying here is that he was trying to put someone who's really good at this technique in the technique, and that person, because they've been in those deep waters so many times, they're just like chilling.
Completely.
But we want to go into those deep waters. It's a mindset that changes over time. You become comfortable with consequence because you recognize the fact that that's the only way you can get better.
Completely agree. So who are some of your mentors and coaches? Then they can be, they can be jiu-jitsu coaches, businessmen, and any of them.
Yeah. Full transparency, Dave sent me a couple of questions before this conversation that he might ask, and this is one of them. So I have mentors in different areas of my life, and I think of everybody from my parents, my business partner, those kind of people who've had influential roles in my life. Jiu-jitsu, obviously. I think over time sort of demystified in my mind the role of like guru mentor type folks, because the more people that I've gotten to interact with who are at the top of their field, the more I've gotten a little like, I was demystified is probably the best word, but like when you start seeing these people as people, sometimes you're disappointed in who they are. Now, the flip side of that is also true. I've interacted with people who are at the pinnacle of their field that I am blown away by what a human being they are. Those are the people that I'm just attracted to. Recently, I have, and this might seem like a very simple concept to some people, but I've stumbled along this idea that so everything is digital now, but I'm old enough to remember the radio dials where you had to like actually like tune in the dial, right?
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Listen, and if you miss that frequency just a little bit, it's fuzzy. It doesn't sound right. But when you hit that sweet spot, it sounds great. It sounds beautiful, perfect. I think that we as human beings operate on frequencies as well. And I think that not everyone you interact with, in fact, very few people you interact with are on the same frequency. So when you find that person that like, you've got to hold on to that. You got to protect that relationship. And a lot of the misunderstandings that I think that we have as people are because you're on 100.9 and I'm on 102.5. That might be an old reference for some people, certainly in the satellite age and the Spotify age and stuff like that. But if I'm on 100.9 and you're on 102.5, we're probably never going to hear each other. We're probably never going to go, I got you. But every once in a while, you find a person who's on the same frequency as you, and you're like, that's my people. So, I've had the great privilege opportunity to interact with people that I look at as being someone that I aspire to be more like, that are really great elite humans that don't necessarily have to be. I share this example one time. I have a friend who's a WWE superstar. He's at the pinnacle of his field, and we're sitting, when we were first getting to know each other, we're sitting at lunch one day, and I told him that my daughter is a fan, and he's like, well, I said, can we take a picture real quick? I'm going to send it to her. She's a fan of yours. He's like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I had someone take our picture, and I sent it to her. I just texted it to her right away, and he's like, hey, did you just text it to her right now? And I said, yeah. He's like, well, give me your phone. Okay. So he FaceTimes her, and my daughter, thinking that it's dad FaceTiming her, right, picks up, and then all of a sudden she sees him, and one of those kind of moments. He's like, "Hey, thank you for being a fan, everything like that. We're going to be in Detroit here in a couple of weeks. Would you like to be my guest at the event?" And she's, "Yeah, absolutely." So the night before we go, we're going to have dinner together. He had just hopped off a flight from South Africa, clearly tired, clearly hungry. He's a huge human being. We sit at dinner, me, my wife, my daughter, and him for 3 hours. 3 hours where we're talking about life and the things that he's doing in his community and giving back and all that other kind of stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, this is an elite level human. And I asked him this question. I know this is a big story. I apologize. I asked him this question. How do you do this? Like, how do you hop off a plane and do this? And I remember his response like it was like seared into my mind. He said, how can I not? How can I not take a picture with someone who comes up to me and says, "Hey, aren't you? How can I not invest in my community? How can I not do those things when I only have this limited time to make an impact?" Talk about mentors, talk about here, like, I want to be like that. I want to be that person.
Right.
And maybe it's fortunate because I got to see it firsthand. I got to see it in action. But those kind of folks you mentioned, Professor Alvarez, I want to be like that. I want to be the type of person who invests in other people because it's good and right for them, not good and right for me. That's who I want to be.
That is, I think that's a really, man, you can tell. Okay, you can tell you're a teacher. You can tell you're a speaker, because I always like, we're working with some of our we have coaches like blue belts and things that we're sort of, they help with our kids, and I've got a little bit of teaching experience,
Sure.
And so I'm giving them tips, and I was like, you got to speak the same language as whoever you're talking to. And so, like, whether that's a 5-year-old, whether that's a teenager, whether that's a 40-year-old tradesman white belt, it's obnoxious how many, if I'm talking to somebody and I know they're in the trades, I'll use building terms.
Yep.
I'll use like building terms that I know that they know. And so they'll be like, and I remember working with a guy back when I was purple belt, just a teammate. And I knew he was really into fitness. And I was talking about, like, dude, when you're trying to break someone's guard, we're not doing good mornings, because that's a 250-pound good morning. You can't do that. And he was like,
yep.
There's always so, and the way you put that, I can tell that I completely agree. And I've putting it on that. That's huge. And the second you said it, I was thinking of, I see what you're saying about demystify. Like, at the end of the day, like, humans are humans. And I wouldn't like, ideal. I think if you put anybody on that high of a pedestal, you're probably setting yourself up for disappointment if you haven't met them yet. If you haven't met them yet, like, pick somebody. And
think about in jiu-jitsu, like, you can respect someone's game, for example, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can be like, oh man, this person, they're ridiculous. And then maybe you have the opportunity to meet them one-on-one or at a tournament or something like that, and they're a jerk. Can you still respect their game? Absolutely.
Yes.
Should they be your idol and mentor? Probably not.
No.
Probably not.
No, and I'm glad I'm glad we're gonna get to talk about this. Like, we talked about the Coach Carl, Professor Alvarez. They had their standard, and I like this, and we've actually adopted this at Metro. Their standard, if you want a brown belt or a black belt from them or from us, and I told my team this as well, it's no longer good enough to be an elite human. Scratch that. It's no longer good enough to be an elite grappler. It's you now need to be an elite human, and what that means is, like, you've got a moral compass. You've got, because, like, case in point, like, I've met unnaturally gifted grapplers, like people that would just, like, absolutely they would make me look like I've never trained jujitsu before.
Yep.
But I wouldn't let my daughter around them.
Nope.
So
Nope.
so they
you wouldn't go to them for life advice.
Not a chance.
Right.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
So I think it's that balance, and that's something that like that when we talk to I'll move from this, but it's just relevant. Like when we talk to parents and adults, it's both, and it goes back to how jujitsu like molds you for that. And when you set that standard, it's knowing that it's not just good enough to be jujitsu, you have to be a good human too.
Yep.
And what that looks like. So,
no doubt about it. Yeah. By the way, this is fun.
It's so
a lot of fun. Yeah.
It's so fun. Yeah. Every time, every time we do it, I have fun. I have a blast. And yeah. Let me think. Yeah. Everyone I've done it with so far trains jujitsu. I need to go out of my I take the easy roads, right? Like I get all the grapplers on here.
Sure.
What made you go into business for yourself?
Man, I think that there's probably some degree, like in retrospective, like stubbornness. I was getting real mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually exhausted, waking up every day, trying to follow someone else's plan. I worked for a lot of good people. I worked for some people who were not. And what I was finding is that, and some people are going to judge the statement that I'm about to make, and I understand that, but I was finding very little joy waking up every day doing what I was doing. And you can only for so long. Now, don't get me wrong, our grandparents' generation, parents' generation, maybe different. I think you can only for so long, if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, wake up every day, go follow someone else's plan for you, and do it enthusiastically 40, 50, 60 hours a week. If you can do that, you're different than me. I couldn't do it. So I had a conversation with my wife. I said, listen, I don't think I want to continue to do this anymore. I recognize the fact that there's a financial hit that this is going to require. There's some security and stability issues that this is going to harm, but it's not right for me. We can continue doing these things, and I can be miserable, and I can die at 50 and all of that kind of stuff. Or I can try this. And I think that this is going to be more fulfilling. And I asked her, could you give me 2 years? Could you give me 2 years to find out whether or not this is viable or not? And if it's not, I'll go back. I'll go back 40, 50, 60 hours a week because, I respect you. I care about our family. But can you give me 2 years? And she agreed. And we were about a year and a half into it. And she's like, well, we're good to go. And thankfully, that decision wasn't made prior to what we're currently experiencing.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't know. But I made the decision that if I'm going to spend the highest percentage of my life doing something, it's going to be doing something that I care about and that I believe I can make an impact, and I'm passionate. I'm passionate to wake up every day. People talk about in entrepreneurship, it's the thing that wakes you up in the morning, but it's also the thing that keeps you up at night. It's also the thing that makes you wake up at 3 o'clock and, oh my God, did I do X and Y and Z? That's where I found my fulfillment in a different way than I ever did working for anyone else.
Dude, I feel like you're talking for me. But you're even nicer. You're even nicer than I was to Amanda. Like you, I always talked to. So Amanda and I actually at 19, I'd worked for myself. It was just like a boat. It was like the gold rush. We were in the jewelry industry in 08, 09. Mm-hmm. So like all those gold party, like it was just like a monkey could have done what I was doing, making money. And so then that went away. And I ended up working in the trades, and I did it to provide for my family, and ultimately, like I will put my own comfort aside to provide for my family.
Yeah.
But I will also do whatever is necessary for however long it's necessary to make sure, like, to know that this is not my sentence. This is not my life sentence.
Yep.
You know, like work, hating the what I was doing. And so like my goal has always been, like, it's been for a decade to open a gym and teach jiu-jitsu, because I do enjoy teaching. And and it's just been anybody who's met me, you know, knows that, like, that was my goal, and one day I was going to do it. And I had the luxury of doing half and half. You know, when I finally, like, Coach Muhammad approached me, and you know, I got my brown belt, and you know, I was what I thought was rank enough to open a gym. Coach Muhammad approached me, and so for about a year and a half, I worked both full time. I did full time construction, and then working and building in Metro, and eventually switched it. But that is, I realized, and you hit the nail on the head. There are people, like my mother-in-law has worked, I think she just hit her 40th year at a painting company, doing with the same clerical work for pretty much the same pay, but they're content, right? Like, they're happy. They work that. They look forward to the weekend. And for me, it's not enough. It's not enough. And it's not to say I'm not grateful. It's not to say, like, it's not enough to only enjoy 2 days out of the week. That's not enough for me. It's not enough to, like, to.
Well, listen, I don't know about you. I always share this as the moment. I started getting to the point where I hated Monday so much that I would start pre-hating Monday on Sunday. So those 2 days a week, now you're cutting it down even more. Like by 1, 2 o'clock on Sunday, I'm like, man, Monday's coming. I hate Monday. I hate what I have. I hate waking up in the morning in the shower. I'm thinking, like, man, I hate this. I hate it. I can't stand it. And something switched over time where now, like, if people think I'm funny about this, I love Monday.
I do. I'm a little disappointed on weekends. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm like, and by the way, I always tease people. It's like, listen, if you hate Monday, you keep hating it, because by the time you come around on Tuesday, I'm already a day ahead of you. Like, I love Monday. Let's get after it. I didn't have that feeling working for someone else. Again, I came from a working class background. My mom, I always tell this story. My mom started working for the city of Cincinnati before she graduated from high school. In fact, she had to take off of work to graduate from high school.
Oh, wow.
It's not me. Like, God bless them. I'm not sure if my parents were in today's age that it would be them either, but they were coming to adulthood at a time where this is what you did.
Yeah.
And
that's a fact.
It's a fact. Yeah.
And I think, like, I think there's an easy trap to fall. Well, that's the next question. I don't want to get into it, but they're like, I work, like, it's not like I work, I work. I work. I don't know. I don't even know how much I work. I'm just always thinking about my passion. Like, so if you're talking about how often my mind is on work, it's all the time. Yeah. Now, whether I'm in the car doing something like this or at the gym, or, I don't even count those, because I'm enjoying every second of it, bro. I wake up at 5. I wake up at 5:40. I wake up earlier every day now than I did at the construction job, and I'm happy to do it. You know, like, I wake up at 5:45 to teach, like 7 guys jiu-jitsu in the mornings. Like, they like, that's not, you tell that, and I'm happy to do it. Like, that's just wild. And I want, like, part of the thing with these podcasts, and they're all themed Dreamers of the Day. Like, it's about, clearly there's a focus of entrepreneur. I just want whoever, because if someone hates their job, I want them to enjoy it as much as, like, you and I enjoy our jobs. Right? And or pursue the passion, or at least consider it, like there is more to, like, there's more options. And I love that you were like, I can always go back and get a job. You can always go back and do that.
No doubt.
There's always going to be big corporations hiring people,
And listen, I'm not too proud to admit this. I'm humbled each and every time I still get someone reaching out going, hey, would you be interested in a job like this? Man, because one day that's not going to happen. Like one day I'm going to be so ancient from people's minds that they're not going to think about those things. But it still happens consistently. I'm still humbled by it. And 99% of the time I respectfully say no immediately. No, thank you. All that other kind of stuff. Every once in a while I'm like, but nothing has ever made me go like, oh yeah, I need to scrap this and go work for someone.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And I think for me, like, you hit the nail on the head, bro. Like I'm stubborn. Like, I don't like listening. I don't like, if I think, I've got a partner and we majority of the time we're on the same thing, but when we disagree, I'm just like, man, why is the equal part? I just don't like. I like being.
You guys have a role to determine who.
No, you know what? If we were in the same age, maybe we would do that. But yeah, I just don't like. I don't like listening to people who I think are making dumb choices. Like that's the old, the old job. I saw. I didn't like it, and so I like being able to, at least if I'm going to make a mistake, I'm responsible, and I'm okay with that. Like I'll be the guy, I'll be the idiot making the dumb choice. I'm going to learn from it. Yeah, but yeah, that's spot on, bro. So next question then, where is it? Do you think anyone could be an entrepreneur? Why or why not? And I ask everybody this. Everyone who's on the show.
I think anyone could be an entrepreneur, but I don't think that everyone should be an entrepreneur. I want to preface this by saying I don't mean that with any disrespect. I really, really don't. But I think if you knew going in the balancing act, have you ever seen the people who spin the plates on their fingers and their toes and their nose? Like if you understood how hard that was going in, you might have had like a pause. Like, if you knew going in that the work you do today might not result in dollars in your account for 6 months or a year, you might go, I don't think that everyone is built that way. So I think that everyone could. But I think that before you do, you should have a conversation or 10 conversations with people who do it and ask them, is this a good path for me? And I guarantee you, if you go to Coach Dave, you come to me and you say, listen, I'm thinking about going into business for myself. The first thing we're going to go is, oh, that's awesome. That's great. Tell me about it. Tell me about what your plan is. And then we're going to start asking you some questions that are probably going to make you uncomfortable. And it's not because we don't want you to succeed, but it's because if no one asks you those questions, they're not really doing you a service.
Yeah.
You go to Coach Dave and say, listen, I think I'm going to go out, I'm going to start a business at X, Y, and Z, whether he knows anything about that business or not. He's going to start talking to you about plans. He's going to start talking to you about money in the bank. He's going to start talking to you about support systems that you have. Listen, are you married? Is your spouse on board? Your kids, are your kids going to be taken care of? Like insurance, do you have a plan, a path? He's going to ask you questions that you're going to be like, wow, Coach Dave doesn't want me to succeed. No. He wants you to succeed, but he's going to ask you the type of questions that he probably wishes someone had asked him at the beginning. And hopefully, look, if we're walking along and I see a hole that you're about to step in, am I being your friend if I just let you walk in the hole?
Nope.
No. I'm going to tap you on the shoulder and go, hey, man, there's a hole right there. You might want to walk around. That's what I think everyone who's a successful entrepreneur has and needs. So I encourage everyone to explore, but I don't encourage everyone to jump in. Like swimming is hard when you're a child. Like learning how to swim is hard for some people. Don't jump into the 8 foot. Like let's start at 3. Let's figure it out. Let's dip, a little further each time. Not everyone should jump in and start racing with Michael Phelps.
Yeah, and that was when I first connected with Coach Mo, my business partner at the gym. They that was like, we sat down. I'll remember it forever, bro. Like he sat down with me, and really the first question is like, maybe the second question is, have you considered the amount of effort and strain it's going to be, on your to do something like this, because he's like, what does your gym look like? And because actually that story is, he had planned on opening a gym, and I had planned on opening a gym, and we both went to our coach and we're like, we want to open these, and he's like, why don't you guys just do it together? And so he's like, what does yours look like? What does mine look like? And he's like, have you considered what that is? And of course I had,
right.
And I should say, of course, not everyone has it, but I was like, yeah. And you know what? And just goes back to she's Amanda's on board, and Amanda, like, yeah, I can't imagine. In fact, if your spouse is not fully on board, that would be a game breaker. That would be a game, because you're either your business is gonna flop or your marriage is gonna flop if they're not on board. If they're not and Amanda is obnoxiously supportive. I mean, like for years,
it matters.
For years of like only seeing my kids maybe half hour a day, and like for those who don't have kids, like, he's a bad father. And I'm like, well, I'd rather do it now when they're 3 and 4, because they remember less of it than thinking, sticking with the job that I hated and doing it when they're, 12 or 13. So like, and setting that up and all of these things. I remember an old teammate, Zach Vasicek, he said the same thing. He's like, I'm going to ask you X, Y, and Z. And it's not because I hate you, but it's because somebody should ask you these questions. You're going to need them answered. And if you can't answer them, then you're not quite ready to open that business. Get the answers,
Yep.
And I think we're saying the same thing, but as a result of that, I don't think, yeah, I guess that's good. I would say not everyone can, because everyone can, but not everyone's like, driven. That's the difference between, what they're obsessed about it. And then, that's it, bro. Last one is, might have answered this. Was there like a huge turning point in your career? For me, it was partnering up with Coach Mo. He had just had far more experience, and that was like the change. How about for you? Was there anything like that? Any single moment like this happened, and then it was it?
I think that there's a series of them that in retrospect I can look at. Like, I talked about the first time I ever taught a class. In my field, people say things like, I think I want to speak. I'm like, great. Have you ever stood in front of 500 people? No. Okay, let's try that, because your body and mind and soul and spirit are going to respond in ways that you are not yet ready for, and not everyone is equipped to do this. Like, if you poll Americans, like, their number one fear is speaking in public. Let's find out whether or not that's a fear of yours or not. That one obviously comes to mind. I remember vividly the first time someone asked me how much I charge to speak. No market research. I threw out a number. They're like, great, we need you in 6 weeks. And I'm like, ooh, I should have charged more. Like, I think a lot. That one sticks out. I remember that moment pretty vividly. And then I think there was probably the moment that I went from speaking by myself to having a team, what we call a roster. That first moment was like, this is surreal. Now it's something larger than myself. I have responsibility to these people. Their success is my success. And I still to this day pinch myself, because I'm like, wow, I'm surrounded by people who are really awesome people, and I want them to be successful. And that's part of what wakes me up as well. And again, back to, we've talked about jiu-jitsu 100 times, but there's so much of that that's woven into it as well. Investing in your teammates, caring about their success, both the ones that came in with you, people who are lower in rank, people who are higher in rank. I talk about, for our teammates who compete and stuff like that, when they win worlds, part of me wins worlds. Yep. They win American Nationals, part of me wins American Nationals, because I put in the blood, sweat, tears, all that other kind of stuff. And when they lose, I lose. Like, I probably take it harder than some of them sometimes. but like so much of that influences how I see business and how I see life. That's just I can't. Again, I go back to the idea. I can't imagine a world in which I didn't have jiu-jitsu in it. I know that it happened for the majority of my life, but I wish it didn't happen at all. I wish that I could have gone back and at 5 years old or 4 years old, like your youngest students, that someone could have said to me, do this, because I don't know where I would be right now, but I know that I would be a better person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a, Coach Mo and I talk a lot about, like, a lot of times, like a turning point, or when like a rapid growth period, or something, like when big moves are being made, a lot of times seems like you don't notice them at the time, like not to, not say that, like a lot of times you don't, like you get a new building, that's a big move. Okay, fine. But they like something like you mentioned your roster, you're just like, yo, and I love that you're like, I'm responsible for those people. You're not like, look at all these people, I got all these guys. You're like, I'm responsible for these people. They're like, and so like, okay, now that's what wakes you up at 3 is, and I think, dude, I just think that's so cool, because like even just your humble mindset of it, it is, like you mentioned, doing good people doing great work. Like, like that's that motive. Right?
And I want to give a shout out. We had this conversation before we started. I know that we're way over time. I apologize for that.
No, you're fine. I'm good.
If I don't take a second to shout out my coach, Coach Carl Rabidou, for those of you who don't know him, he's younger than me. But I look to him for guidance, not only on the mat, but not, because he is absolutely of that mindset as well. So much of my jiu-jitsu, back to the first time I ever put on a gi, him teaching me how to put it on, comes back to him as a person and as a teacher and as a coach. That so much of what I'm talking about is also reflected in the way that I've been taught as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and I'm applying these things to my life. So much of it goes back to him. So it'd be wrong for me not to shout him out. And then secondly, the one, the common factor for us as well is Professor Alvarez. I mean, again, back to elite level humans, he is one of those people that if you spend more than 5-10 minutes with, you understand this is who he is. It's not a put on. It's not for show. It's not to make money. It's like all those other kind of things. This is who he is. And, I vividly remember the first time meeting him. We were in Texas, went to Texas to meet him before we were an affiliate. And like, obviously I knew who Dan is. I know his accolades at the time, all that other kind of stuff, but he let me stay at his house. He let me train at his gym. He don't get me wrong, he put me through it. We got on the mats and he put me through it. But he treated me with respect and with dignity, and it made me want to be part of something that was larger than myself and our team. It made me really push us to become what was at the time an Alvarez affiliate, and now hopefully kind of an integral part of the team as well.
That's and you're right, and both those guys, and that's why we joined, right? Like that's why, like we saw just honestly, like nothing against this professor. If you see it wasn't because of the credentials, all of his tournament credentials. It was because of, as a coach, is it someone that we like, that we could aspire to be, and that not only we could look and respect and admire, but also our team could look and respect and admire. And that is just, and that's what it should be, right? Like that's what it should be.
Well, and I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit more for folks who are paying attention and watching this still. The first time we met, Dave, I had seen a video that you had made when you came up to train in our gym. And you were like, look, guys, so we're not in Detroit. We're what, 2 hours north, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You guys got in a car on Saturday morning, came 2 hours north to train with us. And I remember you posting this video and you're like, look, this is world-class training. Like this is no joke. You need to get here. And I remember going like, man, that's something really respectful to do. You didn't have to do that. You could have known it. You could have told people whatever, but you went out and said, look, we just came and trained with these guys. We're going to do it more often. Yeah. And that's why like ultimate respect, we were like, yeah, man. So anyone who's hearing this, who thinks that Dave and I are just nice guys and friendly and all that other kind of stuff, that's true, but don't get it twisted. When you step on the mat and we slap hands, we're going to work. And his guys, our guys, I say guys, men and women, you're gonna work, especially anybody who's been there for any length of time. And boy, like attracts like. I mean, we're good people who are putting it on each other and who afterwards are going to shake hands and I love you and good luck to you and I'll see you next time. Exactly. Man, what better is there?
I agree with that, and we'll end on that. But I will, like, you brought it up, so I told Coach Carl this. I was completely caught off guard. Like, not that
you can say it. Go ahead.
Not that like
you're like, we're coming to Bay City, Michigan.
I didn't expect the tier of jiu-jitsu that was there. That I'll just say I was like, I'm not disrespect. I told Coach this. I was like, I just didn't know. Like who would have thought? Like, because Saginaw is very similar to where where you're at. It's in the country. It's like country bumpkin jitsu, but like American national champions. Where like that, like
it doesn't add up.
Yeah. It's like so then like where do y'all train it? Like where is that? Like so where's the other? And but and that's what and it was noteworthy and it was and I'll be honest, if it was just a gym full of tough guys, I probably wouldn't have made that video.
Nope.
I probably would, because tough guys, I believe Salo says this, like there's a quote of him on the internet. You can find tough guys hanging from trees.
Yep.
And like, so tough guys are tough guys, but like you guys are tough, good guys. So, dude, this was so much fun. Do you, I've had this ticker banner of, for College for Life, guys. If, I would reach out to, obviously, right now we've got, I mean, what's that landscape look like for you? Like, how would they go about, who would go about booking for something if they wanted to apply to be a speaker? What's the best way to do that?
Well, I got to tell you, so applying to be a speaker right now, again, we go back to entrepreneurship. We're going to have some conversations about what the landscape looks like right now. It's changing. It's different than it was 6 months ago. But I do say this to people. The good news is, now that we've moved into a semi-exclusively virtual space for events, we can get a lot more creative. I don't only have to speak to college students. If you want to book me or anyone else to do something that's not college related, it's going to look a lot like this. I'm probably not going to wear my Cincinnati Reds t-shirt here on opening day, but we can get more creative now. The other thing that's always nice is now that we're in the virtual space, I can be anywhere at any time. If you need me in New Mexico at 2:00 and then Florida at 4:00, cool, we can be there. When it was physically the case where someone had to hand you a microphone and go, couldn't be done. But now we can line them up. So please reach out if you have any questions. You can find me on almost any social media channel. I'm probably one of the most accessible people that you can find. I always answer my own messages. No one does my social media for me or any of that kind of stuff. It's me. Reach out, and I look forward to connecting with y'all.
Awesome, Casey. This was huge fun, bro. I do. I can't wait to roll with you guys. Soon, hopefully sooner rather than later. And then, of course, we're actually, we're rolling. So if you're in Detroit, right now here, we'll see you soon, brother.
Cool. I appreciate you, Dave. Thanks everybody for tuning in.